Today we are going to look at creation of virtual machines. Okay, first we'll understand what is virtual machine, the overview, and then we'll look at the pricing concepts and what basis virtual machines are charged, what are the components that are charged, and then we will see some management options of virtual machine, and finally we'll also see what are disks in virtual machine. Okay, all right, let's get started with overview of virtual machine. So in case if you remember, in the very first session when we discussed about cloud computing, we learned that there are three categories: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Right? So can anyone tell me which category that virtual machines would fall under? Is it IaaS or PaaS? Is it infrastructure as service or platform as service?
Infrastructure as a service.
Very good. It falls under infrastructure as a service.
Structural.
Okay. So here, as you can see, there are two colors: green color boxes and blue color boxes. So when you work with IaaS, it is called as IaaS. It is pronounced as IaaS. Okay. So Microsoft will take care of the items that are in blue, and we are responsible. We need to take care of the ones that are in green. Okay, that means the physical aspects like physical computing, physical servers, physical networking, physical storage, all these will be taken care by Microsoft. That means, let's say there is a problem with motherboard. We don't have to worry about that at all, because Microsoft will replace that with a healthier one. If there's a problem with RAM or CPU, it could be a problem today, or tomorrow it could be maybe a better one. Every few years technology changes, hardware technology also changes. Okay, for example, let's say if I have a computer which is 10 years old, okay, the motherboard obviously it will also be old. Now the latest RAMs cannot fit into that motherboard. That's not possible. If it's very old, then the latest technology would not fit there. So when we take a virtual machine here today in Azure, after 10 years, we don't have to think about hardware, because Microsoft will replace it with latest technology automatically. Very frequently, every now and then, they keep replacing that. We don't have to worry about that at all. But what we should be worried about is all the things that are inside the virtual machine, right from OS. Okay, today we are in 2024. The latest operating system is Windows Server 2022. After 10 years, it could be 2030. So Microsoft will not take care of that OS. It's our responsibility to upgrade it, because it is OS. OS, whatever is in green color, that's our responsibility. So installation of OS updates every now and then, very frequently, and every couple of years OS upgrades, then software installations like Java runtime, .NET runtime, all those will keep upgrading, right? It's our responsibility to decide which version to be used. Okay, so that's called as IaaS. So Microsoft is giving infrastructure to us as a service. So today, basically VM, when you say IaaS, it's just VM. So today we are going to learn what is a virtual machine, how to create it, what are the various components of virtual machine. So let's understand the overview. Basically, VMs are part of IaaS offering or IaaS category. And then it's an instant compute infrastructure provisioned and managed over internet. That means we can quickly, in just 5 minutes, we can create a virtual machine. All we need is an Azure account. Okay, and now it also supports scale up and down based on our requirements. That means today we can create a VM with small capacity. Capacity, if you remember these terms, capacity means the compute power, CPU, RAM, those kind of things. We can increase those any point of time. Today we can start with a small VM, and based on our requirements we can increase the size or decrease the size. So flexibility of scaling is built in virtual machine. Okay. So now when do we go to VMs? We choose VMs if we need more control over the environment. Environment means operating system. Okay. Um, there are other options like app service, right? PaaS. The other day we have learned PaaS. Okay. So in PaaS we will not have control. Little control will be available in PaaS, but complete control is available only in virtual machines. For example, you want to install a custom software. Obviously, in order to install, you have to log into the machine and then download the software and then install that and configure it. So all that is possible only with virtual machine. In PaaS, it's not at all possible. You cannot do a remote login into PaaS server. That's absolutely not possible. Okay. So VM allows us more control. Okay. And why? Because it has operating system that is under our control. Because OS is under our control, we can do whatever we want. We can install any type of applications. Okay. So now let's talk about pricing. And guys, if you have any questions, you have to unmute yourself and ask me, because I will not be able to see the messages, and in case if you raise your hands also, I will not be able to see it. Okay, please unmute and feel free to ask questions. Okay, all right. Let's now learn about pricing. So there are separate charges. One is compute cost, the other one is storage cost. So we all know VMs has CPU, RAM, those come under compute, and disks come under storage. That means we'll have obviously need to have C drive, E drive, F drive, those kind of things, right? I'm not saying D, okay, but E, F. So those are storage cost. Okay. So now these can scale independently. You can add multiple disks. You can remove disks when you don't when you think you don't need them, and you can increase the size of the CPU and RAM, or you can decrease based on the requirements. Okay. And VMs, one very nice advantage that it provides is we can stop the VM. Of course, in production you will never have to stop them, but at least in lower environments we can stop the computer, stop the VM. Basically stopping, here I'm not saying shutting down. We all know shutting down, right? I'm not talking about shutdown. I'm talking about a special feature in Azure called stop. It's also called as deallocate. When you stop, when you click on the stop button, I'll show you. When you click on the stop button, what happens is we are instructing Microsoft to release the compute power. Hey Microsoft, I don't want the CPU, I don't want RAM for some time. Then Microsoft will take that back and allocate it for other customers. obviously we are not charged. Let's say you want a VM to learn something. Let's say some complex, you want to run some complex algorithm, machine learning algorithm. You want a large computer. So obviously, personally, you cannot purchase it. So what you do is you come to Azure, you rent it, okay, and obviously you cannot work for more than 8 hours per day on that, right? In general, that's what we do. So you create a VM, large one. Uh, you you install all the required softwares, you write the program, and you run it. It runs for some hours. You do the research for the day, and you are done. So now you will stop the VM after you call it a day. Then from then onwards, Microsoft will not charge for the next, I mean, until you start it. Next day morning, you will again start it. So from then, they will charge. Okay, so compute cost allows us to deallocate so that we are not charged. However, storage is not like that. We cannot do a stop because storage is reserved for our files, right? So it will be charged continuously. If you don't want to get charged, we have to delete. That's the only option. Okay, so both are flexible. You can increase or decrease, but compute can be released whenever you are not using the uh, computer. Okay, so that's about pricing. And whenever you create VMs, very important thing is naming convention. I think we already discussed it. So it's very important that you follow naming convention everywhere, because very soon you will end up having hundreds of Azure resources. So naming convention must be decided upfront. So in general, this is a very simple naming convention, but it changes based on organization to organization. So it's important to have environment name like dev, production, QA in the name of everything, location, a sequence number, and why we are creating, for what purpose. Maybe it might be for database, it might be for web application, it might be for some messaging, all that. And apart from all these, we also have to have a project name or application name or department name, cost center name. All these kind of things are also added. And of course, the type of the resource. If it is a VM, you can put VM. If it is a web app, then WAPP, web app. So all these items must be part of the naming convention. And of course, it keeps changing because every team will have their own preferences. Okay. So now let's understand the components of VM. So before I talk about that, anybody, we all know, we all use computers, right? What all components does it have? Of course, CPU, RAM, hard disk, what else?
Motherboard.
Okay.
Storage, network,
Network, yeah, storage, network, very good. Okay, good. So this is the typical architecture of one VM, all the components. Okay. So this is specific to Azure. The first one is network. See this one, the dotted ones, virtual network is called as virtual. In Azure, everything is virtual. Okay. It is also called as VNet. So these dots. So inside the VNet, you must have to have a subnet as well. Okay, basically subnet is nothing but a set of IP addresses within that VNet. VNet is nothing but set of IP addresses. Okay, and obviously an IP address. In this diagram, it shows public IP address, but you will also have private IP address. And then network security group. You should remember all these terms. So network security group is basically a firewall. So there are multiple types of firewalls in Azure, but this one protects the VM with the traffic. So basically we can control, basically what is firewall? Firewall is a device or appliance using which we can control the traffic, both incoming traffic as well as outgoing traffic. That means you can, with the help of this, you can decide what kind of traffic can be controlled, which is incoming, and what all type of traffic can be allowed outside from within VM. Okay, so that is NSG. This is very, very important. Now this NSG in this diagram is assigned at subnet level. Okay, so now that means in this diagram there is only one VM. Typically you can have many VMs within that subnet. So this NSG, the rules basically group. NSG means network security group. Group means it might contain multiple things, right? What does it contain? It contains all rules. It's a group of rules. Okay, so whatever rules that are defined in this NSG will be applicable to all the VMs, not just one, all the VMs inside this subnet. So NSG can be attached to a subnet or a VM, not to a VM, but to NIC card. What is NIC card? Anybody? If you have used
Network
test.
interface card. Network interface.
Yeah, very good. Network interface card. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Actually, yes. Everybody would have seen that. So we all use either laptops or desktops, right? So how do you get internet?
LAN.
Exactly, LAN card. Yeah. So we all use Wi-Fi, right? Nowadays, everybody uses laptops. Nobody uses desktops, right? So if you have internet connection, you should have a Wi-Fi device. That's a router, right? So this cable guys provide as a network card, a LAN cable, right? You will plug that in, right? Where do you plug it in? It's to the NIC card only. Okay, so there's a slot which you plug in, right, to your computer or your Wi-Fi device. So that's NIC card. Okay, so now NIC card is the one which actually has the public IP address or private IP address. VM will not be assigned with IP address or NSG. So VM will be connected to all this with the help of this NIC card. And one VM can have multiple NIC cards. That's also possible. Okay. So this NIC card plays important role. This is the one which helps VM to get connected to subnet. This is the one which will have IP address, either private or public, and this is one which is connected to NSG group as well. Okay. Yeah, basically any network related things related to VM are coming from NIC card, NSC. Okay. And next one is diagnostics, basically to push all the logs, right? Basically you need to work with storage account. This is optional. And of course virtual machine. Okay, last I missed data disks, right? So you can see here there are disks. OS disk, obviously we all know it is C drive, and then optional you can OS is obviously mandatory. So whenever VM is created, it must also have OS disk, which is C drive, and optional you can create disk 1, disk 2. Okay, these are optional. So all these are called as managed disk. Okay, and along with C drive, a temporary drive called D drive is also created. And this D drive is not a disk. It's part of physical server. Okay, this we should not use this. We must not use this. This will be used. I mean, we and let's say we developers or admins, we should not store anything in this temporary disk because it is temporary. Whenever you stop the VM, earlier I was talking about stopping or deallocating, right? Whenever you are stopping the VM, then all the files stored in this temporary disk will be cleaned up. Okay, because when you create a VM, it might get created in one physical server. When you stop it, Microsoft will give that to somebody else. But when you start it, maybe it might create the VM in some other server, some other physical server, we don't know. So that's why you should never save files in temporary drive. You should always save them in our data disk only. Okay, that's the yeah, VM is the final one. After all of them are created and attached, then VM will be created. So now we don't have to think about creating VNet first, subnet next, IP address, all that, right? Understanding, remembering all the sequence is not easy. Linking them is also not easy, correct? So we don't have to worry about all this. Our Azure portal helps us in linking and in taking care of all the links. Okay, so let's now create a virtual machine. So creation is called as provisioning here. But any questions, guys? Let me go back to the slide. I want to see if there are any questions. No, are we good? Let's get started. Okay, let me head over to portal now. The other day we created these resources, right? These are all past resources. So today we are going to create a virtual machine. So go to virtual machine. I already have a couple of them. As you can see, they are in stopped state or deallocate state because I'm not using them right now. Okay. So both of them are in East US. So I'm from India, Hyderabad, but I can create this kind of servers somewhere in the East US. That's the power of cloud. So now let me choose this. So you see there are other tabs as well. Basics, tags, and replace create. These three are very common to everything. Now these are optional. Basically, when I say optional, the default values will be taken care by Microsoft if you don't change it. Okay. So most of the time, basic is the one that is sufficient. So let's get started populating the fields. So I will choose our resource group. So basically my friend. Basically, the reason why AZ means Azure. The reason why I'm specifying Azure is in some organizations, people not just use Azure, they also leverage other clouds as well. Maybe AWS, GCP. People don't stick to one cloud, especially large companies. I'm talking about large companies. So So in that case, obviously, um, the name should have cloud name as well. And then what is the project name? Fundamentals. You are doing Azure Fundamentals, right? So Fundamentals is a project name. Which environment? Dev environment. Which location? East to west. I prefer east to west. You can choose whatever you want based on your customer's location. And what is the type? It's a VM and a sequence number, because we may create multiple VMs, right? For the same project, same environment. So maybe 001 or something like that. Okay. And yeah, east to west is a location. And do we need availability zones? No. I'll just pick because to save cost. So maybe later we'll learn more about availability zones. It has multiple options like availability set, availability zones, and VM scale set. We'll learn about them later. Security type will just stay basic. And then image. This is very important option. You cannot change it later. This is the OS. If you remember, if you joined my first session, wherein we created PaaS services. Of course, even tomorrow we'll try to create some PaaS services. If you remember, while creating app service plan, we had an option only to choose either Windows or Linux. That's it. We were not able to choose a version of OS. That was not possible. But here, because this is virtual machine which falls under IaaS offering, we have an option to see all the, not all, but many options, many OS versions. Right now, this is just a small list. If you want more, you can click on this as well. Okay. So it's not just OS, but it also tells us about some applications as well. For example, you see, there's Windows Server 22 with Azure Edition. That means Azure related softwares will be installed. Then Visual Studio 22 is also important software that people use. So Microsoft created an image. Then Ubuntu, Red Hat, Oracle with Linux with Oracle, then Debian, Bullseye. These are all various flavors of OS and versions of OS. So I'm going to pick Windows 10, plain vanilla Windows 10 without any softwares installed. Okay, let's say you want SQL Server, so you can search for a particular image, either in Windows or Linux. It's up to you. Okay, and then I'm not going to each and every property because some of them are not really important. And then size. Here we have chosen the OS. Now it's time to choose the capacity. Okay, so it starts with 2 cores. These are the recent ones that I used. You can start with 1 CPU. I think it also has 0.75 GB of memory as well. Maybe I'll click on see all sizes. Yeah, it has 1 CPU. That is starting. Now these are all various VM families or sizes. These are all families: D series, B series, A series, blah blah blah. Okay, so most of the time it's okay to go with D series only. Okay, either V5, V4, or V3. V5 is the latest one, so we should choose generation 5. That's the recommended one. Now let's see L series. It's 16 GB, sorry, 16 CPU cores and 128 GB of RAM. Okay, let's see E series now. 16 cores, 128 here as well. So because my subscription is not real one, so that's why I'm not able to show you. I mean, some of them are, many of them are not available. but still I will go and open oops, it is not okay, it's all 128 GB 32 cores. See, 48 cores 192 GB, 64 cores 256 GB. There is an, it's all D series only again. 96 cores 384 GB of RAM. You see the size as 672 GB RAM. 48 cores, 64 cores, 512 GB of RAM. You see, huge capacity. Ours, the computers that we use are hardly 2 cores or 4 cores and 16 GB RAM or maximum 32 GB of RAM. But here you see 672 GB of RAM in E series, 768 GB. So some cases you may need this level of RAM. Obviously, it is very expensive. It's in Indian rupees 5 lakhs, 4 lakh 37,000, which is around maybe $4,000, maybe or 5,000. Yeah, $5,000 per month. Okay, if you want to do some huge processing, then you should go to this kind of servers. Obviously, you cannot purchase it, right? All you can do is you can rent it. Okay, so we are going to pick a decent one, maybe yeah, 4 cores should be good. Generally, don't take B series and A series. It's very small. So always go to D series. Okay. So 2 cores is also fine, but pick D series if you want to practice. 8 GB RAM or yeah, 8 GB RAM should also be good. So it costs you. Always look at the cost. Very important factor. So it's 5,000 rupees per month if you continuously use it 24/7. Obviously, we are not going to use it 24/7. Whenever it is not required, we will stop it. Okay. And then what is the username and password? Admin username and password. So I always use VM admin so that I remember all this. Confirmation one more time. And ports, public ports. So what all ports you want to allow? Yeah, I want to connect to that machine. So only RDP is allowed. Let's not open any other ports. So let me take a pause here. Let me explain one scenario. Initially, maybe 6-7 years back, I opened this as well. Please don't do that. And I got hacked. Right, somebody hacked my VM, and my password was very plain, simple password. It was even now it is very simple. Admin@1234556. Somebody hacked me, and they started doing. I never knew that, but when I keep working, I used to get an alert from the default antivirus saying that some virus was there. It detected. I thought it is some normal virus. Then I just cleaned up, and every time, at least twice or thrice, I got that, and I cleaned up every time. One day, I got an email from Microsoft saying that some unwanted traffic is coming from your VM. It is registered with your email address, and that VM is making some unauthorized access. It is trying to connect hundreds of Microsoft Azure customers' VMs. Okay, so Microsoft understand that it might be a mistake. Somebody might have hacked your VM, so it was very clearly mentioned. Some looks like somebody hacked your machine, or you are intentionally doing it. So if it's not intentional, please delete that or clean it up. That's what it says. So I cleaned up, but that was a simple antivirus, so I deleted that VM entirely. So please be very careful. don't neglect. Always SSH is little dangerous. Even RDP should not be opened. Okay, but I'm going to delete it very soon. In fact, I'm going to stop it immediately after the session. So I will open RDP because I have to show you by logging in. So RDP is just 3389 port. Okay, and then it's just license stuff. I'll check it, and that's it. Rest of the other things are optional. We don't have to make any changes. You can click on replace create and it will create. That's fine. Let's go and look at other options as well. Click next, it will take you to disks. So here we will have to choose all the disk related option, starting with OS disk. By default, it creates 127 GB of C drive, and of course you can go all the way up to 2 terabytes. That's the maximum for OS disk. Okay, so disk also has limitation. You cannot say I want 100 terabytes of disk. That's not possible. Okay, I think they have limitation. For OS it is 2 terabytes only, but we don't need all that. I will go with the default one. And then disk type. So we have standard as well as premium. Within standard and premium you have within standard you have HDD and SSD. Okay, so basically SSDs are faster. These are the latest ones. Solid state drive, hard disk drive. So for all non-critical ones you should go with HDD. For production you should use SSDs, but for other things you should use SSDs, standard SSD. But here I'll go with standard because they are cheaper. And these are key management means for encrypting all the data. Some keys are used. Platform means Microsoft will provide those keys and certificate. If you have your own thing, then you can use customer managed key. So also called as CMK. Okay, so it is not available for the options that you have selected. So we'll leave it to platform managed key. So only one disk by default. Do you want additional disks? Then you can click on this to create a new one. I'm not going to add additional disk, but I will just show you the options. So provide a disk name, obviously empty disk to start with, and size, it's taking 1 terabyte. 1024 GB means 1 terabyte. This is a common size of the disk nowadays, but you want to change it, click on change size and choose all the options. You can start with 4 GB and all the way up to 4 terabytes, 8, 16, 32 terabytes. That's the maximum limit in premium SSD. But you can choose, there will be an option called Ultra, which I'm not able to see here. Even here 32 GB. It's a 32 TB. Yeah. So I will pick, yeah, HDD should be good. And yeah, choose a size. These are the default sizes, but you can also choose custom size. Let's say you want something between these two, 512 to 1 terabyte. Maybe 800 GB is what you want. Maybe you can choose 800 GB. Okay. So I'm not going to do this. I'll just close it. Or I'll just say okay, but click OK. But I'm not going to use it. I'll delete it. Okay. And that's on disk. Next is networking. So here we can choose existing network or new network. It's up to us. Because this is the first time we are creating a VM for our course. So obviously it recommends us to create a new one. You can also choose existing virtual networks as well if you want. and subnets public IP address. So you can choose all new ones or existing ones. Okay, and then rest of the other things are very optional. Management, creation of identity, attaching to an active directory. Okay, and then enable auto shutdown. Yes, I want to shut this down automatically every day at 7 p.m. IST or UTC. It automatically shut down the machine. Maybe let's say if I forget to do that, maybe 9 a.m. I want to shut this down today, every day in fact. I'm from India, so I will choose 5:30. This is my time zone. And before shutting down, it sends an email to me. Hey Praveen, we are shutting this down in another 10-15 minutes. Do you want to stop today for this instance? If yes, then click on the link. If you want to skip, basically today you don't want, maybe you're working, so you don't want automatically this to be shut down, so they will send an email. If I don't want to shut down only today, then click on that link. They will, or you can even delay it for some time. You will have multiple links, delayed by 1 hour or don't shut down today. All those options will be there, and backup, blah blah blah. Let's not discuss about this now. And monitoring, so basically you can also push the diagnostic information of the logs to story account, blah blah blah. And advanced, now right now we are installing plain vanilla Windows 10, right? Along with that, do you want to install any extensions after the VM is created? Then you can choose this. Do you want to run some script like downloading some softwares, installing them, or initializing them? All that can also be done via some custom scripts as well. Okay, and that's it. Finally, I want to review all the inputs. So click on this, and yeah, you can do a quick review along with the cost. It's 8 rupees per hour. So quickly review all the inputs that you have selected, and if you're happy, click on create. That's it. So with all these options, a virtual machine is created in Azure somewhere in East US data centers. So now whatever options we have selected, we can change many of them except OS, but rest of the options can be changed. For example, C drive, I've selected 127 GB only, right? Later you can extend to 200, 300, 500. That's possible. We did not create any disk. Only C disk is available. Can we attach after VM is created? Yes, absolutely. We can add additional disk later also. Okay. Now, IP address, we can also change it. That's also fine. You can remove IP address. Public IP address is currently attached. Later you decide, hey, this VM shouldn't have any IP address, public IP address, so we can remove it. So all that flexibility is available. Okay. It takes another 30 seconds to create the virtual machine. As you can see, things are in progress. You can also click on this resource group, and you can see what all are created. You see all of them are already created. In fact, the virtual machine is also available. So what all are created now? First one is virtual network, VNet or virtual network. Subnet is not shown outside. Subnet is within the VNet. So maybe I'll quickly show you. Click on VNet, and so you see subnets. One subnet is available, default one. Okay. That's about VNet and subnet. And then a network security group. If you remember, I was saying NSG, network security group. What is this? It contains rules. What rules? Traffic rules. What kind of traffic? Incoming traffic, outgoing traffic. Okay, so by default, 3 incoming rules are available. We cannot change them. We can hide the default rules. And if you remember, I enabled one port which is called as RDP. In general, you should not never do that, because you are enabling some traffic over internet. So that's dangerous. But I wanted to show you something, so I have to enable it. Otherwise, we cannot log into that VM. Okay. So one port is created and outgoing ports are default ones. We will not create anything. So we can create new ones by clicking on add. Okay. So basically the software firewall which controls the traffic, both incoming and outgoing. And then NIC card. So VM is connected to a subnet via NIC card. So network interface card is the one which has IP address. So both private IP address 10 dot blah 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 dot 4 is the private IP address, and this is the public IP address 172 dot something something. So NIC card is connected to public IP. Okay, so now I can click on this. It will take you to public IP address. So that's this 172.2.3 blah blah blah. Now, if you want to connect to VM, you have to use this. Okay, and of course, you can click on this to disassociate. If you don't want a public VM because it has security risk, so you want to disassociate this with the NIC card. Okay, so you have to click that. And then, yeah, we have seen public IP as well. And disk. This is the C drive, OS disk. So currently it is 127 GB. Now you can change it to whatever you want. Okay, you can change it back to premium, all that is possible. Okay, so and finally our VM. So what is the OS? which IP address it is attached to which NIC card, what is the private IP address, what is the subnet, VNet subnet, those are specified here. 2 GB RAM, sorry, 2 cores and 8 GB of RAM. And of course, you can change it. And you can also add new disks. Okay, so all that is possible. Now, what is that we want to do? We want to connect to it. So there are multiple ways of connecting. One simple way is RDP. Okay, so how do you connect? You open the run command and use mstsc. This is a shortcut. This is a command name. Click on OK, which opens up remote desktop connection, wherein you specify the IP address. Copy the IP address, paste it, click on connect, and don't use the password here, but click on more choices, because the first time it doesn't know. So use a different account. So VM admin. First time you can it will ask you certificate and all. Ignore this. Now you can log into the virtual machine and do whatever you want. Yep, that's it. Now I logged into the VM and I can start browsing. I can do whatever I want from now onwards. Your initial settings that related to browser. Now I can download the software and install. I can even change, go to control panel. I can do all that stuff. Okay, so now let's go to C drive. I have only one C drive and D drive is temporary storage. Don't do anything here. So there is a warning as well. Any data stored on this drive is subject to loss and there is no way to recover it. Please do not use this disk for storing any personal or application specific information. Okay, so it will be available right now, but the moment you stop it, you will lose all the data available in this storage disk, in this D drive. Okay, now one quick question. Which one do you think would be faster accessing the files, right? C drive or D drive? Reading, writing to C drive is faster or D drive is faster? What do you guys think? Just make a guess.
C
Either
drive.
this or that. Sorry, C. What did you say?
I thought D was the faster one.
Yep, very good. D would be faster because it is close. Physical machine, right? It's part of the same physical machine where the VM is hosted. But C is little um, it is not in the same VM. It is little away in some other storage device. So D is always faster. If you want to quickly do some processing, when I say you, not you, but in general, developers would be writing some applications related to file processing things. So if they want some temporary place to quickly process some files, create some files, do some computation temporarily, then they can be used because it is faster. It is available in that same machine. So D is faster than C. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's it for today, guys. Tomorrow we will see pass. We'll go back to pass. Um, Here today we have learned IS. Tomorrow we'll learn about pass. Okay. All right. Any questions, guys? If you don't have any questions, we'll stop it here. And how do you stop? We can't stop. That's it. So we are now releasing these two things to Microsoft. So obviously we are not charged for CPU and RAM. Those are the expensive ones. Disks are very cheaper. Moreover, we did not use premium. We used only standard, right? So very cheap. So that's it. And this will not be used. In fact, it got shut down already. So here you should see stopped. If you shut down the machine, here the status will still be running. That means the capacity is reserved to us only. Now, yeah, it is stopped. But if you want to start it now, again, you can click on start. Automatically, we can get the capacity back from Microsoft. Okay. Yeah. All right. Any questions? No?
Praveen, if you stop the virtual machine here, when we
Mm-hmm.
again start the virtual machine, then the
Mm-hmm.
data we are the saved
Using?
or deployed in that virtual machine will be same or
Uh,
it will be us.
yeah, good question. Yeah. So basically, if I start next time, what happens to our softwares? What happens to our files? That's the question, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, Anybody would like to answer? Let's say I did some small configurations to the browser, right? I clicked on some buttons. Will those be saved somewhere, or if let's say maybe we created some files, maybe we installed some softwares, do you think they will be available next time when I click on start?
Yeah,
Anybody?
it will be
Yes. How?
available.
How come? Because
Mm,
we are releasing
it
this
will take
CPU and RAM.
maybe storage and backup.
Yeah, very good. Storage we are not releasing, right? Ocean. We are releasing only CPU and RAM. CPU and RAM are volatile, right? It doesn't store any persistent thing. We have our disk with us, right? So C
Okay.
drive is with us, paying money continuously. So this disk is cannot be released. This disk will always be us. So all the softwares, all the files will be part of this disk. So next time when you connect, we still retain them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Praveen.
Yeah. So that's why it is continuously charged. Even the VM is in stop state, still the disk is charged. The meter for OS disk will be running continuously till you delete it. Okay. Depending on what size.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just have a small doubt.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, what is difference between VNet and subnet?
Okay, sure. Um, I was able to see this, right? Simple. Let's say there's a big VNet in your company. It's LAN. Okay. So you decide maybe you 10,000 IP addresses is what you want to allocate in this VNet. Okay. Now within this, obviously you wanted a separate isolation, right? Maybe department one, separate department two, department three. Say here you want to allocate 5,000. These are all developers. Maybe HR department, you obviously it will not go beyond 500 HR employees. So these are all subnets. It's just a section within your VNet. It's a segregation. That's it. Nothing special. VNet is a larger one. Within that, you are creating compartments. We all
Yeah,
travel in the train, right? Why do we have
hmm.
compartments? And we have just one single box?
To avoid
Because
trafficking and all.
exactly. So it's
Mhm.
just a segregation. It's just grouping of IP
Mhm.
addresses based on custom needs.
Will there
Nothing
be
special.
any limit like each subnet should have this much IP addresses kind?
Yeah. Yes. Within this, right? Whatever is the limit of
Hmm.
VNet, your subnet can take that limit. That means
Oh.
you can have 10,000 IP addresses in one VNet, and you can
Hmm.
consume all of them within one subnet. Or
Okay.
if you don't want that, you can limit 5,000 here, 500 here, 2,000 here. But overall,
Yeah.
all the IP addresses together should not exceed this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
this
Thank
is
you.
in general. Sure, in general,
Yeah.
this is. But when you create Azure VMs, sorry, not VMs,
Hmm.
Azure resource, and when you want to put them into a network and subnet, some services require a special subnet, dedicated one for them. So they are special. I will say they will say, hey, I cannot sit with other members. I want this. If you want to use me, please have a dedicated subnet for myself. So many Azure resources have those kind of requirements. So always planning the IP address space. This is called as space. How many you want is deciding how many you want and what is the address space. You want to start with 10.0.0.0 to start with this, or maybe 10.1.0.0. So you'll have to decide this address space upfront. Okay, and within this you cannot just, if the address space of we need 10,000, you cannot just put 5,000 for this. That's wrong one. So always think, why are we creating subnet, for what? Okay, and then make it 250, 500, like that, because in the future we may have to create many subnets. So always be careful in deciding what is the subnet range. So range is not the right term to use. Here it is called as address space, or CIDR. I forgot the full form of this. CIDR is what you should decide for the subnet. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about subnet. That was a good question.
Thank you.
And subnet address space once fixed cannot be extended. That's not possible. Okay, for example, here it is 500, right? Here it is 500. So let's say after you attached some resources to this subnet, you cannot change it to 600 or 700. Not possible. Okay.
Yeah.
This is really, really important. I've seen many people, right? In one of my other customers, they hardly have 20 IP addresses. So now we need
Okay.
more. So you cannot extend it. If you want to extend, you have to delete everything, and then you can change it,
And
which
again,
is
we need
not
to do one more subnet again.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This, yeah. I think somebody was trying to
Yeah, Praveen,
speak up.
just I want to some suggestion for if someone asks me or someone requested for create VM, and how I need to think the size of VM I need to select on.
Yeah, good question, right? So in real world, how do you create VMs? So basically, your architects will decide that they will provide you all the different things. Um, so what is the size? What is the OS? Okay, how many disks? What is the size? So either you should, whoever is the owner, whoever has requested that, they will have to provide all that. If you think that information is missing, you'll have to ask them.
No.
So the way it works is, people will, the architects sit with client. Can you please go on mute? There is some background noise. So the way it works is, when you get some requirements, your architects and client's architect will sit together. They will decide what is the requirement, what is the capacity. Basically, there's a thing called capacity planning. Some in some projects, a special team will be there. Um, Maybe capacity managers is what people call. They will first analyze the cost. I mean, of course, after requirement analysis, they will understand what kind of resources we should create, whether it is VMs or PaaS. They will decide that based on various factors. Then they will check the cost, and once all those things are finalized, then they will have to design the architecture. And while designing the architecture, they will have to choose all the SKUs. SKUs means sizes. We have to go to premium, standard, what is the size, what is the cost. Basically, whenever the project is kicked off, first thing is cost analysis is done, and we have a pricing calculator. Okay, let me quickly show you. There's a free tool called Azure Pricing Calculator. So people use this. Nobody knows all the costs, right? So this is a tool which gives the cost of everything, all Azure resources. So here people come and click on whatever you want. There will be a small pop-up that comes up here. Click on this. So it will ask us which region. Region also matters, guys. Okay, if it is US, all these options. Let's see how much is the cost. 137, right? Maybe I'll pick 137 to 143. It is costly in India. It's cheaper in the US. You see 156. Korea, it's even expensive. 181, it's expensive there. So definitely based on the location, cost varies. Okay. Then you see Windows is $137. Linux will be cheaper. See, 50% less because Linux is free, right? Open source. Windows is Windows is additional cost because of Windows license. And again, if you take SQL, it will be very expensive. Right now, normal OS is 137. SQL Server is $1,200 additional. SQL Server license is very expensive. Even further, if you choose Enterprise here, I don't know why Enterprise is missing here. Okay, Enterprise is here. Yeah, Enterprise is very expensive. If you choose Standard, it will be cheaper. So all these factors um, are very important. So you architects will have to provide you all this. Okay. Yeah. If they don't provide, obviously, while writing, we'll have to ask them. They will even provide you what is a subnet, what is the IP address that you should assign, everything they have to provide. If not, you have to ask them. Don't just create blindly. At least size you
Yeah.
can choose one initially, but IP address, all those are very important because changing them later is very tough.
No. I'm thinking just like a agent or Elastic VM and SQL VM as you said, and we have an option. The point I thought was, and one question related to this VM backup. Means if I have in a means if I want to restore, generally we take snapshot now. The snapshot concept it will take entire VM or it will take only disk snapshot. And how can we restore the snapshot?
Sure, sure. So all those options are available. Okay, you want to take only disk backup, that's also possible, or you want to take entire VM frequently, that's also possible. Okay, there are different options. Maybe when we start sessions, we will learn those. These are all part of Azure admin course. Will look at that later.
Okay, thanks.
Backup and recovery is what you're asking. So that's absolutely possible.
So we have seen that we can stop the VM. Is there
Hmm.
a way to shut down also?
Yeah, yeah, we can normal shutdown is right. Whatever we do, right, that's also possible. But you should not do that. Why do you want to shut
Okay,
down? When you don't want to use it, stop it. If you shut down, still you are charged.
okay.
Shutdown is there, normal shutdown. You log into the VM, there is a start button, this button, click on that, and it will show you shutdown or restart. All those are possible. It says regular machine. Windows 10 OS, whatever Windows 10 supports, all those are there.
Then how is it different with start, stop, and shut down?
Okay. So stop means you are telling Microsoft to take CPU RAM back.
Correct.
Okay. Shutdown means we are not telling them. We're just saying I don't want to use this. I'm shutting it down. So we need to tell
Okay,
Microsoft that I don't want this now. Please don't charge me.
okay. So you mean shut down still that capacity is in use. But if we
Correct.
will stop it, we are releasing the resources. Microsoft can allow, leverage it to someone else.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Day before yesterday, we have learned PaaS, and there we have uh, created app and all those things we have done inside a service plan. So I just want to say, let's say I have an application which is developed in core or maybe classic framework, and there we are using the option of let's say session we are storing in some other device, maybe a Redis cache and or maybe some database. So
Hmm.
and also you have shown that you can resize the I mean scale up or scale out that path through
Hmm.
that path service. So how that will happen in case of let's say I am using the session management in some third device?
Hmm. Okay. So your question is sessions, usage of sessions in
Yeah.
scale out environment. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Very good question. Okay. So let me explain that in a slide now. So basically, this is more of technical development related developer specific question,
Yeah.
guys. Others,
Yes.
don't worry. Just understand. Try to understand. The question is there is a website. Sorry, there is a website. There is a web application. Okay, and obviously websites are created in generally one server. Correct, server one. Uh, the other day, I think whoever has joined on that day, you also would know that we can create scale out, is also called as load balancing or server farm. In olden days it was called as server farm. Now people call it as load balancing environment as well, right? So now when traffic grows, we have to increase the number of servers. You might heard, right? Google,
Yes.
Facebook installed in thousands of servers to take the traffic, right? Amazon, Flipkart, all these are big websites where thousands, millions of lakhs, millions of people use, right? Obviously, the one single website will be hosted in server one, two, three, up to n servers. Now the question is on specific thing called sessions. Now, what is a session? Session is basically the information of logged in user. So his or her email address, some IDs, right? So their contact details, something which is used across many pages of the website. So developers store all those in sessions. Now, in general, okay, sessions basically are some small pieces of information which are stored in server's RAM. Server one has RAM, server 2 has RAM, server 3 has RAM, blah blah blah. Now developers create sessions, and when sessions are created, they will obviously be stored in server's RAM. Now let's say we are storing user email address. First time user, when Amazon.com is accessed, user will provide username password, and when they hit login or sign in, the first request goes to server one. And here the application is here, right? So it creates the user details in RAM. Now in a load balancing environment like this, I mean, if it is there is only one server, there is no problem. Server request goes to server one, response goes to user. Again, next request comes here, next response go to here. If there's only one server, there's no problem. But the question is, what if there are many servers? First request comes to server one, second request goes to server two. Server two doesn't know who this guy is. So technically server two should log him out, log her out. So how do we handle this situation is the question. Okay. So there are two options. Okay, first one is to use sticky sessions, which is old technique, very bad technique. Second one is to okay, I'm recalling the option. ARR. Okay, 1 second, guys. ARR stands for application request. 1 second, guys. Routing. ARR affinity is the second option. So first option is legacy option. It is used for old application. Second option is used for stateless application. Stateless. So all new applications should follow this stateless architecture. Now what is stateless? Stateless means don't depend on server's RAM. Okay. Don't depend on server's RAM to store your session information. Don't depend on anything that is specific to server, because Microsoft will remove this on the fly if it becomes unhealthy unexpectedly, and it replaces with a healthier S1 that is automated by Microsoft Azure. Okay, and today we have only 3 servers. We may have 10 servers tomorrow. We don't know. So servers are dynamic. They are added, replaced dynamically on many different factors. So don't depend on any server's resources. So if you are building that kind of application, then it is called a stateless application. Okay. So now in this architecture, in stateless architecture, where do we have to store sessions? We should not store the sessions in server's RAM. Instead, create something called as Azure cache for Redis. Basically, there is a concept called Redis cache. So whenever application, so all the servers, basically the application the application is hosted in all servers, right? The application will know about this Redis cache. Here all the session information is stored for all the users. Now this is dedicated, it has dedicated memory, dedicated blah blah blah. Okay, so whenever this is removed, no problem, our session is still available for that user. And whenever user request come to S3, this is the first time his or her request is coming to S3. Now this S3 will check the session information here. And how is this guy passing session information? Via cookie. So every time a request is coming, cookies will contain the session ID, and this S3 server will check for that specific session ID in Redis cache. That is how the problem is resolved in related to application sessions using a thing called stateless. Now when you use Redis cache, it becomes, your application becomes stateless. Make sense? Is that clear?
Yes, yes. But while using this service plan, uh, so on the fly, this Redis cache also gets set up, or we have to
No, we have to. If we have, like how we created virtual machine today, right? How we created Azure
yeah.
PaaS service, app service. So we have to create Azure cache that also has a lot of TS networking features, what size. You have to create that. It will create a connection string. Infra in general, infra guys will create a Redis cache, and you can ask them to provide connection string, and you can use that in your code.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's more for developers, guys. Others, in case if it doesn't make sense, don't worry. It's not for admins or other people. It's only for developers. Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? No. Okay. All right, then let's stop it here. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Yeah.